Good afternoon and welcome back to another live show. And today we're going to have a very enlightening and very interesting conversation. One that is timely, one that should be had, and the hard questions might be asked and the answers might be given, uncomfortable answers. But nonetheless, we are going to attempt. And we have a special guest this afternoon, Mr. Fred Corbin, a native of Barbados and a civil engineer by training. Now, Mr. Corbin is also the engineer of it's the Freewinds. I will have him correct me. The Freewinds agreement is not the Trade Winds agreement as I have on the platform. I will have to edit after speaking with Mr. Corbin. So I'm going to let in Mr. Corbin now, and we are going to have join in by Mr. Corbin, and we'll be talking more about this very important subject. So, Mr. Corbin, let me see. Can you see? Are you on the stage? Oh, okay. He's here. Good afternoon, Mr. Corbin.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. And welcome back to another live stream. Could you please correct me? I think it is the Freewinds agreement or the Freewinds?
No, there's no agreement.
No agreement. Yeah.
No,
so it's Freewinds. It's Freewinds.
It's the Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative.
Okay, good. Okay, and after the program, can you send me that those words? Well, I think I have it on another what do you call it now? Notes in my notes on another. So I could do that in terms of correcting editing after the live has been finished. Now, Mr. For those of you who do not know, we did a pre-recorded version of this video before, but half of the video was missing. I don't know how it just suddenly disappeared. So Mr. Corbin, upon Mr. Corbin's request, he asked me not to release the half of it. So we're going to do the full version and get into the UN 2030 agenda. Go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Well, it's called government censorship.
Yes, absolutely. It was weird. It was weird that I had the video. I said, wow, it's a very interesting video. And then afterwards, I said, why is it that it is cut after 15 minutes rather? Because the video lasted for 37 minutes. Okay, so we're going to get into the weeds of the matter. And welcome to one and all. And make sure that you're liking the video and you're sharing the video, that we can have lots of people joining. The more you share, the more the algorithm will push the video out to other people on the platform. Now, Mr. Corbin, can you explain what the Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative is and who is driving it?
Well, first of all, the second half of the question is I have always been the driver. I'm
Yes.
the architect. I am the architect and the intellectual property holder for the entire Freewinds Caribbean and Food Security Regional Development Initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And the Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative was conceived by myself and then shared with 6 other like-minded individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And we realized that not only was this a regional effort, but it would require a regional cooperative base.
Yes.
Where we had to bring together persons who understood the legal side of things. We had to bring together people who understood the regional and cultural integration side of things. We had to understand finance. We had to understand logistics and engineering and everything and so on. But everything that you see, or everything that has been, what little has been seen or shown, has been the development of my own intellectual property. Mm-hmm. And every single territory of the Caribbean region was identified for infrastructure projects ranging from agriculture, tourism, industry, aviation, maritime, logistics, as well as finance, which was the governing and overarching structure to tie the entire regional development initiative together.
Mm-hmm. Now, why is this initiative being launched now, and what are the immediate threats to the Caribbean food security?
Well, number one, Freewinds Caribbean region was launched 15 years ago. It's not.
It's not new. It's not something new.
It's not new.
Yeah.
It's not new. The only reason that you don't see any action happening around it is simply because of funding. And the funding was actually available to begin the operation based in the island of St. Lucia, but the government of St. Lucia had other ideas with regard to implementing a 15% on everything before it even started. And we're not about, Freewinds investors, we're not about the investors that we brought to the table, particularly for the island of St. Lucia, because we chose the island of St. Lucia to be the headquarters of Freewinds Caribbean, because St. Lucia's geographical position, not only the geographical position, but its unique layout, where you had the seaport of Castries and the E.T. Joshua International Airport 1 mile from each other in the north of the island, and you had the Viewfort Port and Huronora International Airport 1 mile from each other in the south of the island. St. Lucia is the only Caribbean island that has a port and a seaport at both ends, north and south. And that was very unique and very decisive in our decision to base the operation in St. Lucia. The government of St. Lucia had other ideas, and despite having an investment capital and mobilization of capital of £900 million to begin operations in St. Lucia, the government at the time demanded 15% to be deposited into the consolidated fund, which we then discovered was run by the prime minister of the country at the request of the archdiocese of the Catholic Church. So we said, no thanks, not going to happen.
Yes.
Nothing. And I just wish to make one thing very clear to the public.
Yes.
And to our listening audience. No investment into St. Lucia is approved without the permission of the Archdiocese of the Catholic Church.
Is St. Lucia is the Catholic country?
110%.
Wow. Wow.
I think the percentage of Christian or the Pentecostal or something like that is less than 0.2% of the country.
Wow. But in all Catholic, well, I should say in most Catholic countries that I know, the Catholic Church runs the show in terms of the politics. Everything that happens in that country has to go through that archdiocese, as you're suggesting. Now, why? So that is the reason why St. Lucia was against it. Not because maybe the people didn't want it, but because the church perhaps was not getting the cut that it should have received.
We made it very, very clear to the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Stephenson King. We made it very clear to Mr. Stephenson King that Freewinds would not be in a position to pay you to develop your country. We're not paying you to develop your country. We're coming in with £900 million of mobilization capital, with the investment portfolio of a further $6.8 billion for St. Lucia alone, which was a percentage of the $26 billion that were allocated to the Freewinds project, and we had secured memorandums of understanding with 6 different countries for the development of the Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative, and that was £26 billion was the startup capital, and the £900 million was just to build a operations base for the maritime logistics in the south of the island, which incidentally happened to be the constituency of the following prime minister.
Wow. So that says it all, right? Now, how could this project benefit individual Caribbean countries economically and socially?
Well, first of all, Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative was designed around a Caribbean logistics system where we had the ability to move cargo and people and services across the region very, very rapidly. And I did this by working in concert with friends of mine from the United States Navy, who were very helpful in bringing together maritime architects to
Mm-hmm.
design a series of vessels that could transit the region at high speed.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of relying on the standard method of shipping which we have now, or we still have, which takes 24 hours to travel from one port to another,
Mm-hmm.
Freewinds vessels were designed around a propulsion system that I designed myself. I designed
Mm-hmm.
my own propulsion system. It does not use hydrocarbon fuels.
Mm.
This propulsion system, obviously, now that you've taken the cost of hydrocarbons out of the equation, allows
Mm.
the rapid transit of cargo at much lower costs, the rapid transit of people at much lower costs, and the ability to touch 5 ports in a single day.
I
So,
just want to be facetious here, though. I wonder why the UN did not really, put the stamp of approval on your program when it's really in alignment with climate change in terms of reducing carbons and so forth. What do you think? You know,
Andrew,
because
you already know the question, the answer to that question.
I just want to tell them. I just want to tell my listening
You already
audience.
know the answer to that
Yeah,
question.
I'm
You
being
would have,
facetious too. Yeah.
as we say in the Caribbean, you mash too many corns with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe the agenda is not what it is perked up to be in terms of climate change, because obviously yours would be the real trying to not use up all of those emissions and stuff like that.
Yes, the truth is this. The truth is this. Freewinds is so revolutionary that
Mm-hmm.
the and we did have a meeting at the St. Lucia Area Seaports Authority headquarters in Castries, and
Mm-hmm.
the when I outlined the demographics of what we could achieve for St. Lucia,
Mm-hmm.
you could have heard a pin drop in the room because
Mm.
immediately everybody's thoughts were, "Uh-oh, my bottom line is going to get affected because this is going to transform the way business is done. This is going to
Mm-hmm.
transform what happens in the ports of Castries, which are heavily private vested interest
Correct.
occupied."
Correct.
And and that's the case in every single Caribbean country. Every single
Mm-hmm.
Caribbean country has significant private sector vested interests. And the problem with that is that Freewinds came across that like a samurai sword and cut the base from beneath it simply because of its efficiency. We were not using any hydrocarbon fuel, so there were no sales of fuel coming to from particular destinations that we would pull up in. In
Yes.
addition to that, we had our own ability to offload and load our vessels without assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a system designed where the crew, as well as dock workers that would assist the docking and undocking of the vessels and so on, could become shareholder members in the actual Freewinds organization.
Yes.
So
And
immediately,
a son of the Caribbean, a son of the Caribbean is developing that. You'd have thought that the Caribbean would be embracing that thought, that it's not somebody from Europe or somebody from Asia who has developed that, all of that complex system. Is a son of the Caribbean. Go ahead,
well,
Mr.
the thing is, what we realized was that we ran headlong into trade unions.
Mm-hmm.
And trade unions didn't like that idea very much. And I said
Yeah.
to the trade unions in the Castries and some other Caribbean territories, I said, you have nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
You actually are strengthened by joining forces with Freewinds, because
Mm-hmm.
as trade unionists, you would come into the Freewinds organization as shareholders in the single greatest logistical efficiency exercise in the 21st century. And you
Mm-hmm.
all would stand to benefit exponentially simply because we would empower you to recruit members. We would actually put our members as part of the statutory employment benefits with trade unions and so on, and
Mm-hmm.
encourage trade unions to encourage their members to join Freewinds simply because of the benefits that would be allowed from either those persons who may not be members of an actual trade union before, but have a business that does business with Freewinds.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Good. Good.
look,
Now
you,
oh,
you can't
go
make
ahead. Go
this.
ahead.
You can't make this stuff up when it comes to government. Okay, trust me.
Absolutely not. And we understand that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Some of the decisions that or the some of the decisions that are made, sometimes you wonder if universities that some people have gone to have actually taught them anything, because the illogical decisions and the
Mm-hmm.
absolute lack of practicality thinking
Mm-hmm.
is beyond imagination. It's just you just can't understand any of it. And
Due
we
to
stepped
vested
away.
interest, if you said
We
vested
stepped
interest.
away because we recognize that vested interest takes the place of common sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's not because they're not logical. It's not because they can't be intellectual. It's because of vested interests, and
Yeah.
money runs the show, and that is what supersedes even intellect. And that's what we want our listening viewers to understand: that our government might not be operating logically as you would like them to operate, because vested interests precedes all forms of logic. Now, Mr. Corbin, you mentioned many times, on many occasions, that we have a CARICOM, right? CARICOM is no longer functioning. Now, in what ways could this initiative that you're talking about succeed, even if CARICOM struggles or fails?
Well, to be quite honest with you, Freewinds Caribbean Food Security and Regional Development Initiative would initially gain the the interest of CARICOM countries, but
Mm-hmm.
CARICOM countries would quickly realize that Freewinds would be of greater benefit to be a shareholder in than CARICOM ever was. Because don't forget, CARICOM
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
invested in by the United States in order to bring Caribbean countries together, keep them at odds with each other so that there are no interlinkages,
Mm-hmm.
nothing works, there's always
Correct.
conflict, there's never any agreement,
Mm-hmm.
it's constant ratcheting all
Mm-hmm.
the time, and nothing ever happens. And that's
Correct.
precisely what has happened.
Mm-hmm.
As I said before, carry come and
Yes.
carry gone, a long time. The most
Divide and
important,
conquer.
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. The most
Mm-hmm.
important thing about Freewinds is being a private sector organization is that CARICOM countries would still be able to say, oh, well, we're members of CARICOM. Fine, no problem. But they would
Mm-hmm.
invest in Freewinds because
Mm-hmm.
of the national interest to their developing GDP projects, as
Mm-hmm.
well as being able to utilize Freewinds from a national investment point of view. So, take for
Yes.
instance, let's look at an example. Suppose, let us, hypothetically speaking, Guyana wanted to look at Freewinds as being able to create the logistics and the being able to move produce, move people, move machinery, whatever it is, the logistics requirements that Freewinds can provide into the interior of Guyana,
Yes.
up the Essequibo River, and so on, and into the regional, down to French Guyana, around to Trinidad, into the Caribbean, and so on. The government of Guyana can come and sit down with Freewinds management and say, we would like to invest in Freewinds and have a stake in the
Mm-hmm.
Freewinds maritime logistics. And we
Mm-hmm.
would offer our requirements from Freewinds is that we have a certain ability to develop the port facilities for that country. We
Mm-hmm.
run those port facilities on a build, own, operate basis,
Mm-hmm.
and the government of Guyana would benefit exponentially from concessions and so on, which Freewinds would have, so that the government does not have to burden itself with having requirements and departments and various other things like that and so on. Freewinds would handle all of that. In addition, we automatically, just like how an
Mm-hmm.
airline creates an air bridge between countries, we create a sea bridge of export for Guyana, unlike anything you've ever seen before. Because people
Mm-hmm.
could argue the point, well, okay, well, we have shipping that comes to Guyana and goes to other countries already. Um, yes, you do. But for example, a ship leaving Georgetown, Guyana, and sailing to Barbados takes three and a
Mm-hmm.
half days.
Right.
Freewinds does
It's
it
a
in
long
12
time.
hours. 12
Mm.
hours.
Mm.
Now, let's translate that into a transatlantic situation.
Mm-hmm.
And just as a case in point, Freewinds with our naval architects designed 3 transatlantic vessels.
Mhm.
high-speed transatlantic vessels capable of carrying 1,000 TEU, which are trade export units containers, okay, across the Atlantic Ocean in 4.5 days. A
Mm.
typical
Mm.
crossing with a post-Panamax vessel carrying 18,000 containers takes 11 days to cross the Atlantic Ocean, depending on sea
Mhm.
conditions.
Mhm.
Okay? Now, if the seas are good, we can cross the Atlantic Ocean in 4.5 days. 6 days if the
Okay.
seas are not, it's not that bad.
Mhm.
But the most important thing
Mhm.
is those three vessels, the Freewinds Pan America, the Freewinds Excalibur, and the Freewinds Atlantic Conveyor, those three vessels
Mhm.
would be able to transit from Rotterdam in Holland to Guyana in 4.5 days.
Mhm. Wow.
Nobody's ever been able to do that before.
Impressive.
So once you have to understand that time is money, and when it comes to export,
Yes.
when you can move, when you have a country like Guyana that grows and has a vibrant agricultural potential, you can
Yes.
take very, very time sensitive cargo that is produced in Guyana, and you can have that in European markets within a week.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so
Have you have you tried the well, I know that maybe the linguistic problem, but the like countries like the Dominican Republic, which is also a country that produces a lot of agriculture. Have you tried it with them? That free trade, that free winds initiative.
we we did have excellent discussions with the in Santo Domingo. We had
Mm-hmm.
very, very productive
Mm-hmm.
discussions in Santo Domingo. And that was
Yes.
the only port authority that we had discussions with that said to us, tell us when you're ready.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
all.
There's
That's all they
something,
said.
there is something, there is something, no matter what people say about the Spanish speaking Caribbean countries. I don't know much about the Franco speaking ones, but they tend to be patriotic and
Yes.
they love to use what is homegrown. And it
Yep.
seems to me, I don't know what is wrong with our Anglo British oriented Caribbean societies, but we don't like what is homegrown. We prefer that which comes from abroad. And I don't know why.
Well,
I don't know why, Fred.
we have to remember that the colonial British imperial culture instilled for 200 years that nothing from anywhere else but the homeland of Britain was any good. And we
Correct.
still have Caribbean
A
people that
mentality.
believe that if
Hmm.
it's not made in England or if it's not made in the
In
United
the
States or
USA.
Canada,
Hmm.
it can't be any good. So
Correct.
when they hear of a Caribbean national that has actually designed the first commercial vessels to transit the Atlantic Ocean in 4.5 days, they say, "Ah,
Hmm.
that's a pie in the sky." Okay, fine, no
Hmm.
problem. Believe that if you want to, but the port of Santo Domingo, the port authority in Santo Domingo, as well as the port authority in Cuba, the Cubans were absolutely thrilled. But this was one of the most exciting times for us, and
Yes.
that was when we spoke to the port authority in Santo Domingo and the port
Hmm.
authority in Cuba.
Yes.
The Cubans told us straight up, all we require from you is to adhere to the local laws with regard to maritime control and so on and so
Hmm.
forth, and we will provide you whatever you need.
You need. Mm.
One of the first questions that was said put to me by the CEO of the Port Authority in in oh there it was not
Havana.
Havana, not Havana. The
Santiago.
southern, yeah, Santiago de Cuba. The Port
Hmm.
Authority in Santiago de Cuba, the managing director of Santiago de Cuba,
Hmm.
Mr. Juarez, he said to me, do you require any rail links to be enhanced into the port? And I
Hmm.
said, well, ideally, what we would like to be able to pursue is the potential for being able to install a further 4 square miles
Hmm.
of container TEU storage and transfer. And he
Yes.
said, we can provide a direct rail link from
Hmm.
anywhere in the country to your facility.
Yes. Yes. that engaging and helpful.
Yeah.
Now, the observer is saying, Mr. Corbin, sorry to be a Debbie owner, but does Liat ring a bell? What assurance Freewinds won't end up like Liat?
Well, that's a very good question from the observer. And the point that the observer is missing here is that we don't have government officials that are on the take.
Mm-hmm.
So no, it won't end up like Liat. Hence
Okay.
why it doesn't exist. Because if it did exist with government officials as
Correct.
part of Freewinds, it would have already be failed. Okay?
I see what you're
And
saying.
the reason
Yes, I hope
that Freewinds will remain dormant until the time is right, where government officials have no influence in our organization, is precisely that point. So no, we will not end up like Liat.
But I think I disagree with you, Doug, Fred, and probably you can explain that government authorities, if they're doing the right thing, need to be engaged, because what we have are these private sector guys who just want to do whatever they want to do, but the governments ought to set policy to rein them in, which they're not doing.
I totally agree.
Ahead,
and we were instrumental in actually writing our policy for Freewinds, which engaged government.
Yes.
Which engaged government to partner with us, where we did not have government officials on our board, but we had government officials in positions where they could see the vision, implement the vision, and work with the vision for the benefit of the country, not for personal interests.
Correct.
Not
Correct.
for personal
for
interests.
vested interests. Right.
Right.
Not for vested. And the observer is saying, fantastic, keep them out. No, we don't want government out, because that's the whole function. Government now is weak. What we have are weak governments, which are not playing their roles. That's why we're in the situation that we're in, where private sector interests and vested interests are taking over, running roughshod over people, and we can't get the government to do anything because they're in bed with them. So we don't want our people to understand, or to misunderstand, I should say, that government does play a role when they are playing the role in the way they should play the role, right? But when they're not playing the role, then we are going to have serious problems. But we can't reach at a consensus that government should not be involved in the affairs of
no, definitely not. I think the difference was is that, number one, there were no government officials ever to be permitted on the executive boards or the management structure of Freewinds. Number two, we did no business with the government at all, period. If we were approached with regard to vested interests on their part.
Yes.
And number three, we kept the management structure of Freewinds consolidated to a very small committee of totally disconnected individuals from the business.
Correct.
They had nothing to do with the day-to-day running of the business, but they were all experts in their field: financial, logistics, management, global affairs, and economics.
Okay,
those were the five sitting at the top.
Right. We're going to move now to a very important question, because this is a problem that affects all Caribbean countries, including Jamaica and Trinidad. I'm sure, well, Barbados too, more so than probably ever. Could this project help the Caribbean become less dependent on food imports, which we have a problem with?
Well, that's an excellent question.
Yes.
Andrew, because being less dependent on food imports in today's world,
yes,
requires a significant investment in agriculture and in industry.
Yes.
And this was actually one of Freewinds' fortes, where we brought the civil engineering and development projects to each Caribbean island that accomplished precisely that. However, you can invest $100 million in a country in developing agricultural processes. You can do all sorts of different projects and so on. But unless you are incentivizing the population and you're creating innovative financial policy within the country, you are not going to achieve anything. And this is where we sat down and with our financial advisors and management structure, And we
Mm-hmm.
looked very carefully at how a single Caribbean currency could be employed in the best interest of the Caribbean people.
Mm.
And one of these, what we realized is that if the Caribbean region could be united on a valuation of a currency, which
Mm-hmm.
was we have 9 members of the OECD, of the OECS, which are the
Yes.
Organization of Eastern Caribbean States that
Mm-hmm.
operate under the EC dollar. If we
Mm-hmm.
could accomplish the revaluation of every Caribbean currency to the
Mm-hmm.
value aligned with the EC dollar value,
Mm-hmm.
but also backed by a gold reserve, then you have the ability to incentivize populations and to develop
Mm.
agriculture and so on. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, with any kind of revaluation of a currency, you have to look at a parliamentary resolution.
Yes.
And this then leads to the initiation of national referendum on revaluation of currency. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
can't just revalue your currency without talking to the people. Okay, this is
I
absolutely
don't think you can.
important.
I don't think you can do it without talking to the North Americans, because you saw with the BRICS currency also, where they want to replace their and have their own currency, and the US is saying no, you won't. You will
Well,
have.
the US has
Is that
failed on
different?
that.
That different? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the US has failed utterly on that because the BRICS have their own currency already. So nobody had to
Mm-hmm.
ask the USA anything because, as far as I'm concerned, the USA is out to lunch on this whole issue anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because the value of the United States dollar isn't worth the paper it's printed on.
Yeah.
The most
Mm-hmm.
important thing to remember here is that if you have a resolution of that and you have a revaluation referendum, you
Mm-hmm.
can run a referendum for say what 200 days, almost a year, and then
Yes.
during that time, the Caribbean governments can thoroughly explore the establishment of basically national gold reserve and banking committees, which look at creating national gold reserves that are tied to their banking systems. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
putting in
Mm-hmm.
place banking sector frameworks and policies and so on for a new gold valued currency. This is what we did. This is what we sat down and we designed for Freewinds. Freewinds would be able to
Mm-hmm.
bring a solution to the implementation of its operation for Caribbean governments to embrace. Look at this
Right.
carefully. Look at where gold is now. If Caribbean governments had invested in this preparatory stage 15 years ago when we tabled it, look at where the price
Mm-hmm.
of gold is. The price of gold is
Correct.
$3,200 an ounce.
Correct.
Can, can you
Pedro.
imagine? Can you imagine the value that Caribbean governments would have today, and the ability for them to then buy more shares in Freewinds that can be expanded upon to make the Caribbean region a united area?
That is a really, really good point,
Well,
Fred.
there you go.
Pedro Gemot is saying, Fred, the CARICOM states ain't give a hoot about a common currency. What do you have to say about that?
Well, that is very true. Mr. Gemmitt is absolutely correct in his statement saying that CARICOM states don't give a hoot about a common currency, and the reason
Mm-hmm.
for that is what we just discussed:
Yeah.
vested interest.
Vested interests.
Okay.
Right. And sometimes I do wonder, I said on my show, I don't know if Caribbean governments are really in control as they think they
No, they're
are,
not.
or
No, they're not.
they know that they are not, but as we
This
think they
this
are.
the central
Yes.
banks of the Caribbean are all owned by the Rothschild banking system.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, now we're going to move into the UN, because I think that many people are very interested in that, the United Nations 230 agenda. And Mr. Corbin, can you give us a quick overview of that agenda, the UN 230 agenda, and its stated goals for food security in the Caribbean?
Well, the United Nations 2030 agenda has absolutely nothing to do with food security. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with sustainable development. It has
Correct.
absolutely nothing to do with health. It has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with the benefit of the global population. The
Mm-hmm.
2030 agenda is designed for totalitarian surveillance, medical martial law, one world government. That's it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but they paint with a lot of these words. You have partnership,
Yeah.
security,
Mhm.
the eradication of poverty,
Yes.
sustainability, and these are the words, and they repeat them. It's almost like every other word is sustainability, and you really wonder how many times are you going to read? You're going to read that word. You're going to use that word, sustained and sustainability. Go ahead,
Well, let's
Fred.
let's look at it objectively. Let us look at the United Nations 2030 agenda. Let us look at the
Mhm.
European Green Deal agenda. Let us look at the
Yes.
United States and Canada Green Agenda implementation. And let us
Hmm.
look at what it has achieved in the 20 years since its inception. If it was that good, can you please tell me why Europe is in depression? The economies of Germany have collapsed. The economies of France have collapsed. The
Hmm.
economies of other European countries are on the brink of collapse.
Hmm.
The United Kingdom is about to become the first penal colony of the 21st century. And you
Hmm.
have absolute chaos everywhere in the world.
Yes.
If it was any good, can
Yes.
you please tell me why all of these countries are suffering the way they are? Why do they actually take military action to prevent their economies from growing? And I draw reference to the bombing and the attack of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which
Hmm.
the Germans built.
Hmm.
Okay, it was a joint venture
Yeah.
between Russia and Germany,
And
and
Germans,
Germany allowed the United States to attack
to
their
blow up.
side of the pipeline in order to
Hmm.
deprive German industry and economics of natural gas, which kept Germany alive.
Which has, yes.
Germany is now in depression, and just
Hmm.
as an example, one of the biggest companies in Germany, Mercedes-Benz, just laid off 35,000 workers this week.
Hmm. Because
What does
Germany
that
is
tell you?
actually deindustrializing, right? They're actually in the process of deindustrializing,
They don't
and
have
which
a
is going.
choice. They
Hmm.
don't have a choice. So there's
Hmm.
nothing about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. There is nothing about the Green Deal. There is nothing about the Green Agenda. There's nothing about renewable energy. There's nothing about any of that that has any cost benefit analysis implementation in the present circumstances. Why? Simply because it will never replace the power density, the availability, the cost, the ability to distribute oil and gas. Never.
Right, right. And when you look at the whole matter of food security, during the pandemic, I'm not sure, Mr. Corbin, you were watching what was happening in some of the European countries that were, agriculturally based. And the government was actually telling them not to farm and taking over their land. So if you're talking about food security, wouldn't you be encouraging farmers to farm to make
Mhm.
sure that, you have produce to go into the homes of people that they can eat? Instead
Yeah.
of that, they are actually, even in the United States, they are burning down farms. They are, Bill Gates is taking away people's farms and letting them know that they should be doing the GMO and the lab foods and all of that stuff. So when they tell you about food security, it means food insecurity.
That's
Everything
correct.
that they say is always the opposite. I always say, when they say something, think the opposite of what they're saying. And that's exactly, you'll understand. Now, let's look at what some of our people are saying here. United Nations will be the world governing body, you think. What do you think, Mr. Corbin? You're the guest. Do you think the United Nations will be the world governing body?
Only if we allow it.
The world governing body in terms of governing the one world order.
Only if we allow it. If
Hmm.
we allow it, if
But
we, the people of the world, if we, the sovereign nationals of the world, if
hmm
we sit down and allow an unelected, dystopian, non governmental body that was formed from a criminal organization at the end
hmm
of the Second World War via the Bretton Woods Conference to rule us in ad infinitum, then we deserve it. But we're not going to
yes,
allow that to happen. We are not going to allow that to happen. I'm sorry. The United
I'm happy that
Nations.
you're positive because
Yes,
based on
I
what I'm
am
seeing in
very
the world,
positive. And you want to know?
I like.
You want to know why I'm so positive? Because
Yes,
I know the value of speaking power into reality.
in existence. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And many people of yesteryear, if you had asked them that slavery would have ended, it would be, well, that's impossible, right? Because the system was so oiled that it seemed at one point that it was impossible for it to end, right? And it ended. So the human spirit, I agree with you. Now, Mr. Corbin, another one is the Arabs. Let me see if I can put this up on the screen. The Arabs, the Arabs have lots of liquid cash and they give it to them willingly. Them whom? I'm not sure who give it to whom. So why work hard? Do you understand that question, Mr. Corbin? I don't
Well,
know.
the liquid cash is oil and gas, but the thing is, what a lot of people don't understand, and a lot of Caribbean nationals are unaware of, is that the entire Caribbean region is sitting on the world's second largest oil reserves.
You were telling us.
The entire Caribbean, Caribbean basin, from Central America to 270 miles past Barbados into the Atlantic Ocean, is the second largest oil and gas reserves on Earth.
Yes.
There is no reason for the Caribbean region to be energy dependent. We should be one of the regions that are completely energy independent. We should be selling energy to other developing countries. But no, we're stuck as one of the most important geographical regions in the entire Western Hemisphere, and we're stuck to a hegemony that has kept us divided for 70 years.
Yes, because we're waiting for a command, and the command comes from the US or marching orders or from the European Union. Now, we have here one global order. Yes, we know the one global governance is the plan. Those of you who don't believe in anything is a conspiracy theory, you should have, I'm sure you went through the pandemic and you saw what happened. So if you think that this is a conspiracy, I can't help you. You'll just have to go and do your research. Now, we have here Nehemiah is saying there will be no single one world government as a matter of fact. This is as good or bad as it gets. What do you see, Mr. I love that.
As a matter of fact, this is as good or bad as it gets.
Well, yeah, this is as bad as it gets.
I have news from Mr. Nehemiah. Okay.
Yes.
And
yes,
it's ironic that he bears the name of one of the most powerful prophets of biblical times. But at the end of the day, the prophet Nehemiah was actually one of the most positively empowered individuals that ever wrote prophetic scripture. And one of the things that we must grasp is that the positivity that came from his writings extends right this way through to today. And that positivity infects all of us who are spiritually minded to embrace it. And I would say to Mr. Nehemiah, if you believe that this is as good or as bad as it gets, then I'm very sorry for you, but you have already missed the boat.
I think so. So we have them is equal. Oh, when he said that them is the Western governments and business elites. I got you now. Yeah. Sean, now, go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
Well, the question here is, I mean, Sean asked the question, what do you think about BIMPE that is coming to Barbados next year? This will be a failed enterprise. Reason being is that while it may make the convenience of paying each other domestically a breeze, very convenient, this, that, and the other, and so on, when the United States of America financial situation comes to a close, BIMPE will collapse. Because
what is BIMPE?
BIMPE is a digital payment system that was designed by a partnership between the European Union and the United States of America to allow Bajans to use a digital platform for direct payments. Okay. And it will collapse, and I'll tell you the reason why it's going to collapse. We were given intelligence, up-to-date financial intelligence from within certain financial halls of the global management structure in the East. And we have an inside information that the United States of America is currently implementing a plan to transfer its $39 trillion debt all into cryptocurrency. The reason that they're doing that is that if they can ally every single country that is on their US dollar hegemony on that via digital payment platforms, when they transfer the United States dollar into cryptocurrency, they will take the 37 or 39 trillion dollars in debt, transfer it to crypto, and then devalue it to wipe out the debt.
Yes.
What we don't
Everyone is
realize,
lost. Yes.
people don't realize, is that if Mr. Sean has $3.7 million in the bank, he will wake up one morning and he will have 3 tokens left.
Wow.
And he will be bankrupt.
Wow.
Now, just take this into context. Do you really fancy standing in line for 4.5 hours to buy a $200 loaf of bread?
No,
That's the reality. That's the reality. Okay? It will bankrupt the Caribbean region overnight.
Okay. Now, the Caribbean imports a significant portion of its food, and how does this dependency affect our food sovereignty and resilience? They talk about, that's another word that they like to use, resilience. We ought to be resilient. Now, so how does that affect our food sovereignty? Do we even have sovereignty?
No, there's no food sovereignty and there's no food resilience. The only resilience that you have as of a food source is that we are islands and we're surrounded by plentiful species of fish and pelagic species that transit the region. The Caribbean Sea is well known as being one of the world's top breeding grounds for Atlantic yellowfin tuna. And unfortunately, the Caribbean region allows the Taiwanese and the Japanese and the Chinese to come into the region and rape the region of over $4.7 billion worth of fresh fish every year, and then sell it back to us at 200% profit in little cans marked product of Florida or product of
China,
Honduras, or product of China. We're buying the tuna that is breeding right offshore. Now, what we did with Freewinds when we did the research into this, because in 2011 we realized what was going on in the Caribbean region, because being based in St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia had very, very close ties with the government of Taiwan. And I became quite friendly with a Taiwanese official in Castries, who was at that time setting up a shrimp farming enterprise and training facility just outside in the Union area, just outside of Castries in the Union area. And he explained to me what was actually happening. He said, do you realize that our government, the Taiwanese government, is coming in to the Caribbean region, doing little tiny projects like this worth less than $3 million in exchange for rights to fish your waters every single day? And I was absolutely dumbfounded, because what these guys do, these guys sail into the Caribbean region with factory ships. This is a ship that is 1,000 feet long, with pulling a net behind it that will pull in about 3,000 tons of fish at a time, and then process it and pack it, and do that until the ship is absolutely full. Then they will transit back to Taiwan via the Panama Canal, or go to a transit station where the packed and canned product is offloaded, sometimes in US ports, which are then turned around and rebranded and sold back to the Caribbean region for a 200% profit. And I said, there's no way. There's absolutely no way that I'm going to sit down and know that this is happening and not do something about it. So I sat down and I called the guys together and I said, guys, we got to figure this out. And we came up with designed a company called Deep Blue Caribbean. Deep Blue Caribbean is a maritime fishing operation, but is based on a floating platform in the Caribbean, where local fishing boats from any country, doesn't matter, we're international, you can go and fish, but you bring the fish to us, we process it, and we put it into the local market, so the money remains in the region.
Correct.
That's what Deep Blue Caribbean was designed to do. And in addition to that, we could launch and control maritime ISR aircraft from any Caribbean island to keep tabs on the international illegal fishing. We had a discussion with the director This is
Yes.
with the then director of the Regional Security Service with regard to this.
Mm-hmm.
And we were told flat out, there's no way we're going to allow you to do that. Looks like they censored us again, bud.
Hello, can
Hey.
can I hear you? Are you hearing me, guys?
Did they just take the
hello.
first half hour again? I can hear you. I can hear you. They're censoring us again, buddy. I can hear you.
Yeah, oh, good. Okay,
Yeah.
good. Go ahead, Mr. Corbin. I'm sorry about that.
Right, so they're probably censoring us again. Don't be surprised if the first 45 minutes of this program is missing again.
It's censored. You're correct.
Yeah. So
you
yeah,
were saying, yes.
yeah. Once that proposal saw the light of day, it was just completely told, no, that's not going to happen, because at the end of the day, again, vested interests was at stake, and they're
Yes.
not going to allow vested interests to be
Mm-hmm.
in a situation where they're going to be made or shown up to be incompetent, when for years there has been diplomatic spats between Trinidad and Barbados over fishing boats fishing in Tobago. And I said to the Prime Minister, Owen Arthur, while he was alive, I had a private conversation with the Right Honorable Seymour Arthur.
Yes.
Owen Seymour Arthur, Prime Minister of Barbados.
Barbados, yeah.
I wrote to his secretary and I said I'd like to have a meeting with him. And he said, yes, Fred, come on down, let's have a discussion and so on. Because at that time, there was a huge big hullabaloo about Barbadian fishing boats being arrested by Trinidadian authorities and blah, blah, blah. So I went down, sat down with him, and I said, boss, what about if we were to register a company in Trinidad, a Trinidadian company that was owned by all of the fishermen in Barbados? The fishing cooperative could own the company, and we own the company in Trinidad, so that when the boats arrive, we can reflag them with Trinidad flags, have the certificates that this is the company they're working for in Trinidad. We have a processing plant for the fish in Trinidad, and Barbadians can still get their fish because they no longer have to drive the fish all the way back to Barbados in order to sell it.
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes.
And he was like, that's a very good idea, but I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm still waiting.
As you were talking, I remember that a person from Trinidad and Tobago sent me a message in one of the videos I posted saying that the price of fish have gone up since the warships have been sent to the Caribbean seas, right? So I wonder too now, Mr. Corbin, if now that we're talking about fishing, are we going to even control our waters very soon? Because the fishermen are very afraid now of going out to the ocean because they feel that, they are afraid that they might be shot by a U.S. boat or drone.
Well, at the end of the day, this is unfounded fear.
Okay.
Unfounded fear, because
Okay.
any fisherman putting to sea and going outside of the territorial waters of his country needs to be equipped, number one, with a reliable platform. Number two, the correct communications equipment. Number three, the correct identification equipment. And number four, the ability to use all three of those plus his platform to be able to comply with any directive of a naval force in international waters.
Yes.
Okay?
But
So,
what if you're shot at? What if you're shot at and that's what they do?
Hang on one second. The modus operandi for any military action, irrespective of where it is first, try to contact the vessel. Two, identify the vessel. Three, identify if the vessel is cooperating with any instructions. Do you really think that a fisherman with no equipment, no ability to communicate with an airborne platform via VHF, UHF, or whatever it is, and running a high-speed boat is not going to be interdicted? Let us look at the reality. Let
Yes.
us look at the reality. Okay.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
if I am a fisherman and I set out from Trinidad and I want to fish waters 300 miles northwest of Trinidad, just off the western coast of Grenada, which is
Hmm.
extremely rich in yellowfin tuna. Okay, you
Yes.
can ask the longliner guys in Grenada where they go fishing. They only
Yeah.
go 150 miles south of on west of Grenada, and they
Hmm.
set long lines and they're to get 30 tons of fish in three days.
Hmm.
Now, I want to access those waters, but I know that there's a United States naval flotilla in the area that is likely having radar as well as overhead ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance satellites, and so on, and particular drone aircraft on station. Number
Yes.
one, before I even leave port, I'm going to lodge a fish plan with necessary authorities. Here's my call sign. Here's my radio frequency. Here's a radio frequency I will be broadcasting on, identification friend or foe. Okay. And in addition to that, I have a very clear flag flying from my vessel. I am Trinidadian. Okay. The flag is big and bold. I will then proceed. If I am apprehended, if I am stopped, if there's a stop and search procedure, I
Hmm.
have my identification papers, I have the insurance for my vessel, I have the identification friend and foe frequency, I have UHF and BHF radio contact, and I am flying the national flag of my country.
Yes.
If
But
now
yeah.
if I get into a boat and say, yeah man, I'm going to catch fish in Agasa, okay,
Yes.
and I just take off and go fishing, do you really think that there's any really likelihood
Danger.
that I wouldn't be shot at? Well,
Hmm.
there you go. Okay. You see,
Oh,
look, as I said, the fear is unfounded simply because people don't follow the necessary requirements. And the reason being, and people say, oh, well, he can't afford to do all of that and this and that. And that. Well, then don't go fishing offshore. Offshore fishing is a dangerous enterprise because you can have engine failure and then you're left adrift. And usually, when you go adrift, you die because you die from thirst, you die from starvation, and that's what happens because you can be adrift in the Caribbean Sea for months without seeing
yes.
anything. It's a large
Yes.
area. All right.
Yes.
Now, at the end of the day, if you want to go fishing 350, 400 miles offshore of your country, you equip your boat accordingly.
I just wonder though if the U.S. is actually spreading its war on drugs to sort of interdict, if you will, to sort of take over our Caribbean waters. I do wonder,
No,
and
no,
more than
that's
one way than the other. Go
that's
ahead.
not the case. That's not the
That's not
case at all. That's not the
okay.
case at all. The
Okay.
the most one of the most important things to remember here is that the United States of America has gone into this pre pre military or what's called a pre-intervention military stage because of two things. Number one, the involvement of the Tren de Aragua in the civilian invasion of the United States of America, and the involvement of the so-called cartel of the Suns in stealing the United States election of 2020. Those are established facts. Okay? Those are established facts. As I said before in more than one program, the cartel of the Suns has nothing to do with the Maduro administration. It
Absolutely not.
is it is run by MI6 and the City of London and the CIA, and it was founded based upon cartel members from as far back as Nicaragua during the Oliver North crime scene of the Iran Contra affair. These people have come forward and have created that environment that Nicolas Maduro has been fighting directly. In addition to that,
Hmm.
Nicolas Maduro has personally made representation to Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Please look at the evidence that I have sent to your State Department to show you the money trail that funds Tren de Aragua. And where was it coming from? The Democratic Party of the United States of America and the City of
Yes.
London via
Yes.
MI6 operatives. We have the documented evidence to prove that,
Yeah, but
Andrew.
we know the U.S. is not built based on their wars are not based on truth. We know that in
Yeah, yeah.
Iraq, we know that the CIA told the United States, their own intelligence gathering organization, that there was no weapons of mass destruction. The United Nations also supported that information, and they still went in. So we know that none of their wars is built on truth. It's built on propaganda. And this is now where sometimes the fishermen in the Caribbean Sea might have to fare, because they might have their own, they're following the legal processes, but the United States creates this sort of propaganda against them, and people believe what they hear from the media.
Yeah,
You know, you and I could be the cleanest of persons, right? And you and I are going through immigration or customs, and the US or whatever government might spread this rumor against us. We were trading whatever we're trading, illicit contraband, right? When none of that was true. But people believe what they see on the media. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely correct. And when 2 or 3 fishermen are paid $500 TT to say on camera that they're afraid to go fishing, and it's plastered all over the Caribbean media, then Caribbean people say like, I'm not fishing anymore.
That is true. But they're also seeing it in the price of the fish. That's what it's called. That is the cost of living going up.
Well, just look at this scenario. The reason that they can price fish out of the reach of the population is because they want to adhere to the World Economic Forum policy that we must not fish the oceans anymore.
Yes.
The World Economic Forum issued a policy in 2021 that they are not going to allow people to go fishing anymore. So if you price people out of the fishing market, and then you consolidate fisheries under a government structure, you have taken away the industry of fishing from the civilian population. And that is precisely what just happened in Barbados. What has just happened in Barbados is that the government of Barbados went ahead, got a whole bunch of money to renew the fisheries complex after the hurricane, the hurricane barrel passed the south of the island and destroyed it, destroyed a lot of fishing boats, but they made the fishermen sign up to a program controlled by them. And now they've told the fishermen, we're moving your fisheries operation into the Bridgetown port. Who controls the Bridgetown port?
Saying.
Who controls the Bridgetown port? The government of Barbados. So are you telling me that as a standard fish-loving Barbadian, that I can't go to a fish market and buy fish fresh from some guy that I know? I now have to apply to the Bridgetown port to get a QR code to be able to get into the port to see if there are any fish available.
So you're proving my point then, Mr. Corbin, that they're monopolizing. They're monopolizing the entire waters, and we are going to be in problem.
The thing is, they're influencing each Caribbean government to monopolize their own waters.
Absolutely. And the vested interests are the same who control the government.
Exactly.
Now, Sean Cool is saying the company that built BIMPE creates CBDC technology. Is that true?
I have no idea who created it. I don't know who created it.
Okay. Predator Gemot is saying here, allows the Japanese gave grants to these mascots to fish. To these mascots, right? I like that expression. Yes, the Chinese are overfishing in Central and South American waters too. And this is what I hear the people saying, that the Chinese, they believe in the multipolar world. I say, okay, do they? Or do they also want to control just like any other country? What do you think, Mr. Corbin?
Well, you have to remember that every great power has a similar agenda.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mr. Corbin, the observers, Mr. Corbin, our heads of government don't want this progress you'll be taking bread rather from their personal business.
Vested interests.
Yes, that's what we call it. And let me get down to some people. We want to hear from you guys, and that's why I'm highlighting your comments. Every fisher in our region should carry a white flag as a sign of peace support. I agree with that. What do you think, Mr. Corbin?
Well, it's all very well to fly a white flag. The thing is with white flags these days, according to the Israelis, it's either a target or a sign of surrender. And we've seen many white flags flying in Gaza, but yet we still got 80,000 children dead. Right. So at the end of the day, are we flying a white flag as a sign of peace support, or are we flying a white flag to signal that we are neutral? The problem that I see here is that CARICOM is pussyfooting around the area, or pussyfooting around the issue of neutrality. Nobody wants to adopt neutrality. If the CARICOM was CARICOM, and if it had any teeth at all in its ability to influence the region, the CARICOM heads of government would get together and issue a joint declaration of neutrality. We are neutral. We do not permit any military action in our territorial waters. We do not permit any basing of military personnel on our territory, and we do not agree, and we strongly dissent against military action against any Caribbean sovereign state.
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody's saying anything.
Is neutrality possible these days, though? I remember after 9/11, George W. Bush said, "You either with us or you are against us." And this war on terror will not stop until all the terrorists have been eradicated. Marco Rubio, fast forward to this year, he's saying that the Caribbean governments will help us to arrest and to apprehend the terrorists. So do we really have that sort of ground for neutrality?
Well, first of all, let us define who is a terrorist and who isn't. Because I very clearly outlined to the former Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Rowley, who was actually the terrorist and who wasn't. Because he boldly stated at the Caribbean Heads of Government Summit here in Barbados in February of this year, before he stepped down or was forced to step down, that these criminal gangs are terrorists. And I had to ask him a question directly on social media. I addressed the broadcast directly to Mr. Rowley. And I said to him directly, you as Prime Minister should be the last person to be talking about terrorism, because you are in violation of 18 U.S. Penal Code 175 of biological terrorism against an innocent population of Trinidad and Tobago, 11,000 of which are now dead.
Wow.
And that applies to every single Caribbean Prime Minister across the board. Here in Barbados, we're 8,200 and counting dead from biological terrorism.
Yeah.
Okay? So who is the terrorist? Who are the terrorists? Terrorists are the same people who are pushing the same agenda, trying to get people to so-called fight terrorists. They're not terrorists. Right. These people are not terrorists. The real terrorists are the ones sitting in the City of London, MI6, CIA, Washington, D.C., and the other hegemonies of governments or so-called governments around the world. If you really want to see a terrorist at work, all you have to do is just look at Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, okay? And what he has done to the Palestinian people. That is terrorism. That is the definition of terrorism.
Absolutely.
Where you actually use the weapons supplied to you by your hegemonic partner to kill innocent women and children, irrespective of how many white flags are flying. So neutrality, people say, will benefit the oppressor. But at the end of the day, if the region stands upon neutrality, diplomatic neutrality,
correct,
we stand and hold more power as a united region on neutrality than sitting around and trying to discuss the vagaries of who is running who.
I really don't know. The organizations that we are affiliated with and our prime ministers, I don't know if they can be, and as again, the vested interest that promotes their elections, that, run the, another time we'll deal with Guyana and Guyana's election in terms of the fact that there's a billionaire that is now the new opposition party. That's another time, because that's another discussion. Mr. Corbin, was there a reduction of drug trafficking activities via the Caribbean route?
Well, the reduction of drug trafficking
activity
stopped the minute that the current Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago got into power. And the reason for that being, well, it actually stopped when Donald Trump was elected as president. And I'll tell you the reason why. The CIA forward operating locations that were established on the Guyana, Venezuela, Essequibo border region that were facilitating the passage of drugs from the Colombian border through the mountainous regions of Venezuela into Guyana, all of that came to a halt because the head of the CIA was fired and there were 1,200 people dismissed from the Central Intelligence Agency under Donald Trump. Okay? And that included the management structure for these forward operating bases. Those forward operating bases are still there, but we do not know the status of operations of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but I can supply you with a map that was drawn as of April of this year
Mm-hmm.
that showed the active drug trafficking routes that do not include Venezuela.
Yes, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Okay? So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, everything that was allegedly transferred through Venezuela was done so at the behest of the Central Intelligence Agency and MI6, who were keeping the cash flow of their masters in operation.
But didn't
And
you?
the
Yeah.
minute that Donald Trump became president, all of that came to a halt. And that was 2 days later, 2 days after Donald Trump was elected. Nicolas Maduro delivered a dossier of information on financials as well as information on the drug trade directly to the State Department in Washington, D.C. by personal envoy.
Mm-hmm. Now,
We
didn't
were
you also?
privy. We were privy. Some of us were privy to a virtual debriefing of some of that information. And
Wow.
what it shows is that Nicolas Maduro has been compromised by army generals within
Mm.
his own military
Army.
that
Mm-hmm.
are running the operation on behalf of the democratic persons within the Democratic Party of the United States of America, and who were being funded directly by cash injection from the Central Intelligence Agency.
I'm happy you said that because somebody asked me why would the US increase the bounty on Maduro's head from 25 million to 50 million? And I said to them, and I'm happy because exactly what I said, that even though I didn't know what all of the information that you are privy to, but I said to him that it's because when you are given that large amount of money, people within will betray you. Your own family, friends, associates, colleagues will betray you, and that is why that hefty sum was actually
Not
increased.
only that, but that sum was increased to $50 million when the Trump administration uncovered the evidence that persons within the military structure of the Nicolas Maduro administration were actively engaged and were paid by British MI6 and the City of London to destabilize the election of 2020, causing Donald Trump to lose the election. That is the reason, one of the main reasons why it was increased to $50 million. But the point is, the Trump administration is sidestepping the fact that the people inside Nicolas Maduro's organization are the ones that are behind this, rather than him himself. They're focusing on one individual rather than focusing on the organization. And the reason for that is this: if you have trained the organization to take out a dictator, are you going to focus on them, or are you going to focus on the dictator?
Yeah.
There you go.
We have Barrington Edwards is saying it is a done deal and nothing can stop what is coming.
What's a done deal? What is a done deal?
I guess the New World Order, I would think, the one world government, I would think that he suggested. Now, the Observer, WEF is doing this. This is crazy. And I'm sure the whole matter of what is happening with the drug war and all of that stuff. Pedro Gemot is saying, the Observer, no, WEF has the ideas, or leaders is doing
Well, the
doing
leaders
whatever.
are doing it. Their leaders are doing it at the behest of the World Economic Forum, simply because the World Economic Forum has a long history of
Yes.
paying people to do its bidding. And at the end of the day, when you have a prime minister of Barbados who is a World Economic Forum alumni, trained by the World Economic Forum, do you expect any different? Come on.
Interestingly, in Jamaica, there was a lady, Marlene Malahoo Fort. I'm not sure if you know her. She was the one who was pushing for the Republican status in Jamaica. And since the third consecutive term that Andrew Holness won the election, he has totally disbanded that that office that she headed. So I'm not sure if Jamaicans are rejecting the Republican status, and she got upset, and he just decided to get rid of that ministry, Minister of Constitutional and Legal Affairs.
Well, I think that was based on a pretty much a very shaky footing as well.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to the issue of the CBDCs and so on that Pedro is talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
so on, and Observer are talking about. One very, very good development that happened in the Caribbean region yesterday
Yes.
was the finance minister of Trinidad and Tobago
Yes.
has outlawed the implementation of the use of cryptocurrency until 2027.
Okay.
And this is, in my opinion, one of the most strategic, positive developments
In
for
Trinidad.
Trinidad and Tobago,
Mm-hmm.
because he sees the writing on the wall, and he has obviously had access to the same information that I have had access to, where he sees the United States of America devaluing the, the wealth and the worth of what Caribbean governments hold in assets in US currency. Remember, if a Caribbean country holds $50 billion in US currency in assets and you devalue it through cryptocurrency, you bankrupt your country. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you disallow the trading of cryptocurrency in Trinidad and Tobago and you maintain the worth of that nation, and you take and transfer that worth, that net worth in assets, cash assets, and transfer it into gold assets, nobody can take that from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. I, you
And
know,
this
I
is
just, I just think that the Trinidad government started off on a bad footing, with what they're doing and what he said about the whole boat killing of the innocent people. I don't know if I can trust Trinidad and whatever it does here onward. I think that our ministers also, they make good decisions here, and then the bad decisions, then they take one step forward and 10 steps backward. So I don't know if I can trust Trinidad and Tobago at the moment. What do you think? Well, you just say that you think is a positive
well,
direction.
yeah, I always think positively, and I think that to be perfectly clear and very candid, and with also the utmost respect to the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala
Mm-hmm.
Sark,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that Mrs. R needs to actually take a pause on the rhetoric right now.
Yes.
She needs
Yes.
to she needs to stop talking about geopolitical issues that do not affect the people of or do not have a direct bearing on the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and she needs to focus on rebuilding the nation and the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the sovereign nationals of that country.
Mm-hmm.
Do not get involved in the geopolitics of the region. Do not be refocused or sidetracked by what is happening in the region. Maintain a steadfast, focused direction on your sovereign nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad
Mm-hmm.
and Tobago is a sovereign republic territory of the Caribbean, and she needs to just stop talking, stop the UN, stop all of this. Just look, it has nothing to do with the average person on the street and trying to make a living in Port of Spain or Maracas or San Fernando or anywhere. The people of Trinidad and Tobago need a leader. They need a guiding hand. They need
Yes.
the reassurance of a prime minister that is standing shoulder to shoulder with them and not standing on platforms imitating the rhetoric of other geopolitical puppets in the region. We
Mm-hmm.
need leadership. And I think
Yes.
that leadership does exist, but it needs more refining and focused on the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and let us hear from what Mary Antoinette is saying. The problem is that she thinks that by getting involved in the geopolitics of the US and the region, she will help get in nation building. This will prove a false assumption in the future. Go ahead, Mr.
She's
Corbin.
absolutely correct. And Madame Antoinette is bang on the money. And I would say to Lady Antoinette, your analysis with regard to this situation is very, very timely, simply because when you look at the geopolitical situation of Trinidad and Tobago with regard to its national interest of Trinidad and Tobago has always been based around the oil and gas industry. And while the oil and gas industry has been reinforced by Exxon's reinsertion into developing the oil and gas service and so on for Trinidad and Tobago in the best interest of US operations,
Mm-hmm.
this does not mean that they have the best interest of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
The Prime Minister is the duly elected representative of the people. Do your job. It is not your job to stand at the United Nations or stand on any other platform and try to tell the world that you're standing alongside a US hegemony, which is already under question and already being sidelined by the BRICS alliance and the collapsing United States dollar and their economy. That does not benefit the average man standing on the street outside of anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
From the guy selling doubles on the savannah to Mr. Sabgas sitting in his media control room, controlling the media of Trinidad and Tobago. None of that has anything to do with Trinidad and Tobago population rebuilding. Yes. The rebuilding of the population, the rebuilding of the focus on the economic structure and the domestic society progress that is required. It must be refocused in that direction. Otherwise than that, all you're doing is sitting pretty, turning up a red house occasionally, and mouthing off to the world, and the people on the street are not seeing the progress you promised. Keep your promise to the people.
Well, Marie Angela says she's Trinidadian, so she perhaps even lives there. I don't know if she lives there or she's on the ground to see what is happening.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yes. I don't listen. I didn't live in the Caribbean for many years.
No,
that doesn't mean I'm not Caribbean.
I'm not saying you. Yeah, I'm just saying I didn't know that she was from Trinidad.
I'm just drawing an example. Example. You don't have to live in Trinidad and Tobago.
I agree.
To be national.
I agree. I agree 100%. In fact, many of them have attacked me on my videos that you're not living in Guyana, you're not living in Trinidad. Well, I don't have to live there to make a commentary about the country. And I'm happy when they pass on relevant information that I didn't know. To me, I say, thank you for letting me know that. But something I want to say though, Fred, and I've been saying it on my videos from day one, in the Caribbean, whether it's Barbados, well, I shouldn't say that because I don't know what happens in Barbados, but I can say what happens in Jamaica. That when they're running for offices, the politicians, we don't know who fund them, unlike the United States, where you can say that this person funded their political campaign. We don't know who funded, what's her name, Kamala person, the Caesar. And it is the people who fund them to whom they are loyal, not to the constituents, not to the citizens of the country. What do you say?
That is very true. And at the end of the day, we have had a long history of that in the Caribbean region, where the hegemony of the United States of America, Great Britain, the European Union, as well as CARICOM, has been the tool by which Caribbean governments have been coerced and selected. And this is exactly why CARICOM has not been a useful enterprise in the Caribbean region.
Yes.
Okay? Now, this last question here by Observer: should the Caribbean let CARICOM chairman be the lone voice regarding the current geopolitical situation in the region? Well, let's answer that question in two parts. Number one. Is the CARICOM chairman educated in geopolitical situations?
Well,
one second, Andrew.
He has a PhD.
One second. Hang on.
Yeah.
I'm not done yet. If the chairman of CARICOM were educated in geopolitical situations and knowledge and education with regard to what is actually happening on the ground surrounding the chairmanship of her organization, we would not be having this conversation. So, no, she cannot be the lone voice, or he cannot be the lone voice, whoever he or she is.
Yeah, I think it's Andrew Holness who is the current chairman of CARICOM, isn't he?
I don't care. At the end of the day, it's an individual who does not understand the geopolitical situation of the Caribbean, far less the world, because we wouldn't be having this conversation if they did.
Well, as we said, because they are aligned with vested interests, that is why we're not hearing from them. But it's not that they don't know. They know, but they are on board with whatever the agenda is. Whatever suits the vested interests, that is the agenda that they align themselves with. But it's not because they perhaps don't know. Some of them might not know, but some of them do know. Parties, could you take that? Parties are an illusion in the Caribbean. The parliaments don't recognize parties.
Well, that is partially true. The It's partially true that that parties don't recognize parliaments, but at the end of the day, you have to recognize that parliament is an instrument by which parties are controlled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the
Mm-hmm.
reason that the parliamentary structure exists is because the parliament had to be founded before parties could be formed. So the parliament controls the parties. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that parties don't take any notice of parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the parliament actually controls the parties.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have a parliament otherwise. Okay, and we have to recognize that the three most important parliaments that contributed to the development of the Caribbean region were, first of all, the Parliament of of England,
Mm-hmm.
then the Parliament of of Bermuda,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Parliament of Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
Barbados being the most instrumental in establishing the colonial hegemony within the Caribbean region,
Mm-hmm.
because the Parliament of Barbados was the one that designed, drafted, and implemented the plantocracy slavery system in
Mm-hmm.
1665 and then implemented it in 1666.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In
Mm-hmm.
addition to that, educated black Barbadians who were all Freemasons
Yes.
were then transported to the United States, well, what was then America, to
South
found
Carolina. Yeah.
to South Carolina, to found the
Mm-hmm.
city of Charleston, South Carolina. That was
Mm-hmm.
founded by black, educated Freemason Barbadians. And the
Correct.
plutocracy system that was designed in 1666 was
Mm-hmm.
implemented across the southern United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
That came from Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember that the parliamentary system is a Freemason system.
Yes.
It is a
Yes.
Masonic system. So
Yes.
the parties do the bidding of the parliament, and the vested interest in the parliament is who controls the politicians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Now, talk about vested interests, and look at this. This is coming from Dr. Andrew Holness, and this was pronounced at the last, what do you call it, CARICOM session in Montego Bay. And look at the title of the article: "War on Gangs Must Be Treated as War on Terror." Right? That is what the Prime Minister is suggesting here. So we know where the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, says CARICOM nations must take a strong stance on organized criminal gangs, noting that gang violence must be regarded as acts of terrorism. Now, Mr. Corbin, what do you say about that in light of that article and what we've been talking about in terms of who controls whom, and where is Andrew Holness getting that that sort of lingo from?
What was the date on that publication again?
That was on the the last session, July 7th, 2025. July
Right.
7th,
Okay.
2025.
Well, that language is taken verbatim from the CARICOM Heads of Government Summit that took place in the Bahamas, Nassau, Bahamas, in June of 2023.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And
Yes.
the then Vice President of the United States of America, Kamala Harris, said the exact same words.
Same words. Mm-hmm.
And that became the narrative, and that is the reason why he is saying that. And it was at that very meeting that I think it was the meeting before that, actually the meeting before that here in Barbados, that the former Prime Minister Trinidad and Tobago, Keith Rowley, said that the exact same terms, that gangs had to be considered as terrorists. And that's the reason why I said to him, who is the real terrorist?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So who
we
is
all
the real
know the
gang?
terrorists.
And the thing is, let us define gang warfare.
Yes.
Okay. Gang warfare can be defined from a proxy military perspective, And it can also be defined as a socio-domestic reaction to the tyranny of government.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the case of the Caribbean region, when governments are given
Go ahead, Mr. Corbin.
when governments are given the mandate to engage gang members, governments are given the mandate to engage gang members. And we saw that happen right here in Barbados, where gang members, leaders of gangs, were invited to Parliament.
Yeah.
Invited to the parliamentary session on the formation and the inauguration event for the Republic of Barbados. Gang members, this photograph being present there. They are proxies of the government. So let us ask Mr. Holness a question. Do you have any proxy gangs that answer to the Jamaican Labour Party?
He does, I'm sure.
Thank you. Now, at the end of the day, the situation is this. And he could very well say in his defense, well, this is nothing new. Jamaica has always had this problem since Edward Siaga's time.
Or he's cleaning up. He will tell you that he's not carrying on in their tradition. He's cleaning up the mess.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, every single person that said that they were cleaning up terrorism actually added to it. Ask George Bush.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is that, Fred, we have to deal with the reality that the whole room is turned upside down. So we know that the criminals are the ones behaving as if they're the righteous people, and we, the citizens, are the ones that they're saying are the terrorists. We are the terrorists, and I want people to understand that. And that is why they're taking away our rights, because we are the terrorists. And the terrorists are the ones who are, as Fred is saying, who are going to be the ones who dispense the law and to police us. And that is what we have to understand. We see what is happening in Haiti. Haiti should be the example for what's ahead. Now, the reason the observer is saying, the reason I asked my last question, which I can't remember. Do you remember his last question? Mr. Corbin? I can't remember his last question, but he said the reason I asked my last question is because the Grenadian Prime Minister has offered to be the mediator. Yeah, I've read that, the observer, for Venezuela-U.S. conflict, when I believe the CARICOM chairman should be the mediator. What do you think about that, Mr. Corbin? I heard that.
I would say to Mr. Declan Mitchell, butt out. It's none of your business.
But he's a CARICOM member. Isn't he a CARICOM member?
That has nothing to do with it. The sovereign nationals of Grenada have been through 2 revolutions.
Yes.
They have established themselves as a very resilient entrepreneurial population, and they do not need any more so-called marrying up to the same force that has destabilized their economy.
Well, maybe that's what Andrew Holness will tell you too. Jamaica has gone through 1970s revolution, and the CIA destabilized us, so why should we?
At the end of the day, Mr. Mitchell needs to butt out. You have absolutely no idea what you're getting yourself involved in, and if you think that you're going to be some sort of mediator, you know nothing about the historical context of either one of the situations, far less the history of the U.S. Venezuela involvement, because you were not even born when Venezuela and the United States of America began to go their separate ways. Yes. And I would say to Mr. Declan Mitchell, you are a very young man in a position of a certain amount of power. And with great power comes responsibility. And the responsibility you have right now is to shut your mouth and look after the people of Grenada.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Pedro Jamot is asking, do you remember the accusation in Cuba? He spout off his mouth without asking for a dialogue.
Yes, that's correct. That is absolutely correct. All he could do is talk and did not ask any single questions with regard to dialogue. He did not engage the ambassador of Cuba. He did not engage the CARICOM or the Caribbean representatives of the Cuban population in the Caribbean. And as a prime minister, one of the first orders of business when a situation arises, particularly when it has diplomatic or strategic diplomatic consequences for your country, any prime minister should immediately seek out the knowledge bearers of the nationality which is in question. Now, in this case, hypothetically speaking, just hypothetically speaking, if I were the prime minister of Barbados and this crisis were to develop between Venezuela and the United States of America, my first order of business would be immediately seek out the knowledge bearers of the Venezuela-US history. Who are the people most knowledgeable on the history of Venezuela and the United States of America, to put the current circumstances in the context, so that when I speak to my people, that the Barbadian population is given the truth, they're given the knowledge, and they're given the education upon which they can base and watch my decisions in their best interest. So I would say once again to Mr. Dickon Mitchell, you need to back down. Stand down, Mr. Mitchell, because this is none of your business. I've lost you again, Andrew.
Mr. Corbin?
Yep,
Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I'm hearing. Continue, Mr. Corbin.
Yeah. So yes, at the end of the day, Mr. Mitchell needs to stand down. Okay, he knows nothing about the history of Venezuela and U.S. relations, and it is very, very clear that he is trying to use an opportunity to try to further his own interests with regard to trying to gain brownie points or something like this. No. But listen, at the end of the day, the people of Grenada need you to be a prime minister. They don't need you to be some self-aggrandizing, looking for brownie points individual. And just because you're best friends with Mia Motley means absolutely nothing to them. Okay?
And talk about, before we go on to Francis Wells from Trinidad, I'm hearing that, Mr. Corbin, and what's your take on this, that Mia Motley, as you talk about her, that she seems to be the only one among the bigger CARICOM nations to want peace between Venezuela and the United States. What do you say about that? And why hasn't Andrew Holness, Dr. Irfan Ali is simply taking the position of Trinidad? So why is Mia Motley on the right side of history right now?
Let us be very clear, Andrew, and the public needs to know this, okay? The Prime Minister of Barbados is not on the right side of history. Okay. Not in any sense of the word. Because she was the one that fomented the entire flare-up of the crisis between Guyana and Venezuela.
Yes.
Okay? She was the one that went to Caracas to try to get things done. She was the one that that ended up in Guyana with Irfan Ali and toured the operations going on the Guyana Essequibo border region. She was the one that went to the United States of America to get $6 billion of frozen Venezuelan assets released, and then pocketed it and didn't. And at the end of the day, Maduro just exposed all of her activity in that dossier that went to Washington.
Wow. Yeah,
so she's not on the side of any peace. Listen, I want to make one thing very clear. There is no peace when you have an individual that is intent on destabilizing and being a national security threat to the Caribbean region. Okay? There's no peace.
Yes. Let's get to Francis Wells. Trini here. Thank you for the objective opinions. Totally agree. And yes, that Thursday UNDP meeting was totally transparent. Why do people fall to the wrong side? Mr. Corbin?
Well, people fall to the wrong side simply because of opportunity. They look at something. Oh, this is something I can do. This is something that I may be good at. I mean, come on. Look. Mr. Mitchell is young and he has enthusiasm and so on, and he's had some guidance from former Prime Minister Mitchell, who I know personally, by the way. And during the Freewinds project, I sat down with Keith Mitchell and outlined the development plan for Grenada. 13 high net worth infrastructure development projects for Grenada that would put Grenada on the map in the southern quadrant of the Caribbean region. And he said to me, Fred, I may not live to see all of this. He said, but I wish you Godspeed, because our people desperately need this. And I know that because you have personal interest in Grenada, that you will see it through. And that was an encouragement to me. I have a lot of respect. I had a lot of respect for him at that time. I lost my respect for Mr. Mitchell during the COVID criminal fraud, because he implemented and he was instrumental in implementing a criminal, fraudulent escapade against the people of Grenada without bothering to look at the truth, even although he had it directly in front of him. And I personally called him out on a radio, a live televised broadcast to the people of Grenada, along with Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Richard Amerling. I called him out in person. I said, you as Prime Minister of Grenada need to come to the people and admit that you have been wrong. Nothing was ever done. Okay.
But which of them did not do it? I don't know which.
Well, as I said, it gets all the way back to to the very beginning of the conversation. Vested interest.
Vested interest. So we can't blame we can blame him because he could have taken the courageous stance to say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to haul my people down this road. But he decided not to do it because guess what? They all want power, and power is sweet when they are in that. Now, Mr. Corbin, any final words that you have? I think that all the questions have been asked, and it was really a terrific and interesting, enlightening conversation. Any final thoughts, Mr. Corbin, in terms of how we move forward? I'm happy that you're optimistic. I am not. I think I'm pessimistic in terms of where we're moving, where we're going. I don't see where, I think primarily we the people are not educated in terms of informed, aware. And it is sad to see that, prank videos and these little phony videos on YouTube are the ones that get the thousands of views and some little, partisan politics podcasts. But real podcasts like these, we're trying to show you the real facts and truth. We're not going to get a lot of viewership and stuff like that. So what is I don't know if we are going to be able to spread the news to many people because people are distracted.
Yes, we are going to empower our sovereign nationals of the Caribbean region with truth, knowledge, and education. I refuse to take the position of pessimism simply because I know the spiritual power of enlightenment that can be brought to our people. And the more of these interviews that we do, and the more people that we reach through our interviews, we empower them to grasp the spiritual power of soul love for humanity. And we empower them to look at truth, knowledge, and education, and to begin to put common sense and reasoning in gear, and to dismiss the distractions and the nonsense, and turn off the TV and spend less time watching TikTok and Facebook and all the rest of the nonsense that keeps them distracted. The problem that we have is that we're up against a machine that it goes all the way back to the times of Julius Caesar. When Rome was about to be overthrown by the Turkish forces, he engaged in festivities and circus and so on and so forth. And he was asked, why are you doing this? He said, give them bread and circuses and they will not rebel.
Right.
And this is precisely where we're at. And we have been going through this for the last 2 years, from 2023, beginning of 2023, right to the present day. Every single country, every 5 minutes, there's some big event, some big music event, some big party, some this, some that. This is the bread and circuses phase before the actual collapse. And what we have to understand is that we are the collective conscience, our conscience, we are the collective conscience of truth, knowledge, and education that can bring a halt to that nonsense. Because collective consciousness that is spiritually empowered embraces truth, knowledge, and education.
Very well said. Mistress Kaola, she's a very avid, and she's one of my great followers. What would be the solutions for us? It's a very good question to end the program. Do we focus on agriculture and tourism to get out of this economic freedom or whatever for the Caribbean even possible? Well, she's asking, is economic freedom for the Caribbean even possible?
Yes, economic freedom is there for the Caribbean is possible. Again, oil and gas. That's economic freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Economic freedom is having one Caribbean currency that is based on gold. Economic freedom is empowering agricultural truth, knowledge, and education. Economic freedom is expanding fisheries. Economic freedom is about education of our young people.
But the
Economic
question is
freedom
how?
is
Yeah. How are we going to achieve those things?
how
And
we
that is
achieve
what
that.
our politicians do. They tell us
It's,
all of these grand plans, but they don't tell us
and
how.
let me
How are we
and let
going
me
to do
and
it?
let me tell you how you do that. It starts with you. You sit down with your children and you gather their little friends around them. Okay. And the reason I say that is this: I look after two beautiful little girls who
Mm-hmm.
always ask me questions. They come to me and say, Dad, how can we do this? I want to ask a question, please. How can I do this and how can I do it? I said, okay, come, let's sit down. Let's have a brainstorm. Okay.
Yes.
This is how we're going to do this. This is what we do, and so on and so forth. That's same implementation. But how do we get economic freedom? Economic freedom is a mindset. You have to
Mm-hmm.
believe that you can be sustaining of yourself first. Are you planting your own food?
Right.
Are you able to sustain yourself in a period where you may not have any electricity and where you may have limited water supply? Have you
Mm-hmm.
taken care of your personal circumstances should you be isolated? That is the first step. The second step is to take those little ideas and you start spreading them. Okay? At the end of the day, the most important thing that you have to understand is that what is right below our feet can only be accessed through intelligent effort.
Mm-hmm.
That is oil and gas being lobbied by the public. We need energy independence. We are
We
not going
do.
to have energy independence and think that we're saving the planet with solar panels and windmills. It's not going to work. And I'll tell you the
Mm-hmm.
reason why.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that you're going to have the sustainable development goals and all the we have to reduce the carbon footprint by
Oh my God.
blotting out CO2 creations and so on. And how are we going to limit CO2 creations? Oh, we're going to blot out the sun. How do you expect a solar panel to work when you blot out the sun? Hello? How is a
Yeah.
windmill going to work?
Yeah.
Because when you blot the sun out, the sun is instrumental in creating wind
Absolute
across the
energy.
earth.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, the sun influences ocean currents, which also
Mm-hmm.
create wind because low pressure moves to an area of high pressure. Okay? And high pressure moves to an
Mm-hmm.
area of low pressure. That creates the winds. Ocean currents and solar irradiation creates wind forces. If there's no wind because you've blotted out the sun, how are the windmills going to work? Hello?
It's not going
Right.
to work.
Exactly. So oil and gas, which does not run out, simply because oil is abiotic. It is a byproduct of the process of the inner workings of the core of the earth. That is abiotic. And it will never, ever run out until our Heavenly Father decides to destroy the earth. And He's not going to do that because He says clearly in
Absolutely.
His scripture, man will pass, but the earth abideth forever. Okay?
Forever. Absolutely.
Forever.
Absolutely.
Those
Absolutely. I
are
agree with
His
that.
words. Those are His
Mm-hmm.
words, not mine. Those are
Mm-hmm.
His
Mm-hmm.
words. So understand one
Mm-hmm.
thing very clearly. We have all of the power within our collective consciousness to raise our level of frequency of understanding of truth, knowledge, and education to deliver ourselves because nobody's coming to do it for us. Not the
And and
CARICOM,
and and, and
not the
just
UN, not the UN, not the US, or anybody else. We are the architects of our future.
yeah, and
And
just to
once you
extend that,
understand that, good.
right. Just to extend that passage of scripture that only God who created the world can destroy it. Just like the
Precisely.
human body and soul, only God can destroy it completely. Man cannot do it. Okay,
There you
so
go.
that's what we have to understand. CO2 needs increasing for life to exist. Um, and you're correct, we need CO2. You don't need to worry about CO2. Nature regulates this. Okay, whatever.
Absolutely
So
correct.
we thank you so much, Mr. Corbin, for your time. This was an enlightening conversation, and we hope. Now, before we go, in the chat, tell us what we should discuss next week. We want to discuss what you are here, you want us to hear. It's not what Mr. Corbin and I want to talk about, even though sometimes, yes. But what do you want? Let me hear of a topic next week that you think Mr. Corbin and I should discuss. you can let me know. But thank you so much, Mr. Corbin, for a wonderful time again, a time well spent. I hope that this will go to many people and that they will learn. And I like your optimism. Don't join my pessimism. I like the fact that you are optimistic, and that is what we need in our world today. We need more positive thinking and more positive people. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Corbin, and I look forward to seeing you. What did they say? The elites just want the oil and gas to. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Corbin, and we will have a wonderful program next week. All the best
Thank
to
you.
you. See you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.